Thank you very much for joining me on the marketplace this afternoon, and welcome back. Now, government is being urged to support the local production of broiler birds to reduce importation of poultry products. Director of Filial Heart Foundation, Dr. Ernest Kwakun, says the lack of production materials and the high cost of acquisition have led to increase in prices. He says the situation makes imported poultry products dominate the market due to their relatively low prices.
Dr. Kwakun advocates implementation of the policy that requires importers to source 40% of purchases locally while importing 60%. He says it will boost government's agricultural drive.
Government should use everything possible to make sure that it succeeds in rolling out the project that they termed 40-60, where 40% of poultry is produced here, only 60% imported. I think if that policy is pursued, then farmers and business people like Akati Farms and Kwon will be able to produce locally to supplement. And there should be enough chicken and eggs for every child.
Filial Heart Foundation's flagship program, dubbed Chickenless Chicken at Christmas, feeds less privileged children at Christmas. Over 500 children benefited this year.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I'm so happy. You can see, beginning with a small number of 50 children, now today we have feasted 500 children. It's getting better and bigger. It's because I had all these wonderful sponsors who were willing to bless these children through my initiative.
Host of Obra on Insure FM, Mama Efe Amano, admonished foster homes against maltreating children in their care.
Okay, my appeal to the society, especially women, if you are living with somebody who is vulnerable, please don't take advantage. The person can be somebody's wife in the near future. The person can be a queen mother in the near future. Her future is in your hands. Take good care of that little girl, and in the future, the Lord will bless you and bless your children.
Kwesi Deborah reporting.
Let's now turn our attention to the banking sector, and the government has justified its decision to support a financial arrangement that will help some local banks to recapitalize. This follows concerns of double standards and buyers looking at how it handled recently collapsed 7 banks. George Riafe has more in this report.
According to a government source, it was forced to support this arrangement, which is private sector-led, because of the impact of allowing these banks to go down on the economy. The source adds that the challenge facing these banks were purely a capital shortfall issue, and it cannot be anywhere compared to the 7 other banks that were collapsed recently by the Bank of Ghana. He maintained that these 7 other banks had serious corporate governance issues as well as being insolvent, and their case was not a capital support issue. Government, we understand, was also worried about the possible job losses, and if these local banks went down, how they would affect employment in this country. They also looked at the fact that even if these banks were stepped down to savings and loans, how this would restrict their workings and impact negatively on their earnings. The proposed financial deal for these banks will result in the creation of the Ghana Amalgamated Trust. The trust is hoping to leverage on some pension funds that these private firms are managing and lend it to these banks in return for an equity or controlling stake. We're also learning that this will not be free money or a bailout, but rather a more support that will result in them having an equity in these banks. We are also learning that the deal will result in possibly taking some key positions in these banks and how they are going to be managed going forward. There are also plans to float their interests, possibly listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. There are also talks of looking at whether to merge some of these banks going forward.
All right, so we'll still be staying in the financial sector, especially the banking field. But before then, let's go for this other story. An old underground mine at Ayesu in Abofem is due for reactivation in the course of 2019. Former Chief Executive for the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation, Alfred Obeng-Boateng, disclosed this at a Deba as a also in the Western region. He says the official takeover before the end of this month will see creation of jobs for the teeming youth within the communities.
Speaking during a donation of 3 Nissan pickups to the police in Bibiani, as well as Seshubekwai and Rioso in the Western region, he said the mine will go a long way to reduce unemployment among the teeming youth of the communities.
The good news for our youth is that we have brought investors who had acquired the old underground mining at Ashireso and Abrofrim. The official takeover is before the end of next month, which is January 2019, and operational activities shall commence in April 2019. I am optimistic and confident that there is hope for the youth at the end of the tunnel.
Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Deborah.
Back to the financial sector. The Bank of Ghana, in its November 2018 banking sector report, has indicated that banks in the country are now moving away from lending to investments as they restructure their balance sheets. The report, which is published after the Monetary Policy Committee MPC meetings, highlights developments within the banking sector that were deliberated upon during the policy-making process. The latest report puts together the financial position of 30 banks in the country as of October 2018. The report indicates that 13 of these banks are locally controlled, while 17 are foreign controlled. Now, for bank assets allocation for the period under review, October 2018, 40.3% represents investments, 28.7% for loans and advances, 23.7% for cash and due from banks, and 3.6% for fixed assets. Now, joining me in the studio right now for more on this latest banking sector report is our in-house analyst, Philip Namfuri. Now, Philip, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
I've not seen you the whole of this year.
Yes, indeed. Just 3 days.
I know, right? Now, so what is the reason for this current trend, of the assets, the bank's assets?
Okay, so let me just do a bit of explanation here. In banking operations, when you gather your deposits together with other sources of capital or sources of funds, you channel these into various areas. We have the lending, you have the investments, that's securities, government treasuries, etc. You also have fixed assets, the bank's cars, the buildings they run from, etc. There are mainly 4 main areas the banks channel their money into. Now, the report is saying that the banks are now moving away from lending. And if you look at the data, let me take you back to 2015 October. 44.5% of their assets were going into lending. Let's fast forward to October 2018, and you realize that only 28.7% of their assets are going into lending.
Which means they've cut down on loans and advances.
On loans and advances to you and I. But if you read the report, Bank of Ghana's argument is that the stock of non-performing loans are quite high. And as banks are trying to more or less make sure that their balance sheets are tidy, they are shifting away from this, because if they put their money in securities, into investments, it's going to get a very, they're going to get back more than they'll give to you, knowing that, okay, if something goes bad, you're not going to pay them back. But obviously, if you invest in government securities, treasury bills, either the short-term ones or even go beyond into the notes and bonds, your money is going to be given back to you by government. So if you check the report, there has been a significant jump from the short-term securities to long-term securities by about 229%. So you realize that the banks are channeling more of their funds, and the sources of funds are mainly deposits, together with the bank capital itself, or the shareholders' contributions to the bank. And then maybe their borrowings. But main sources of funding for banks in the country from the reports is deposits. So they are channeling these deposits to investments in government securities. So the investments here has got to do with treasury bills, notes, bonds, and even shares. Some banks have stakes in some of the entities on the stock exchange. Even that has dipped a bit.
It's not worrying for the banks to take this course or this direction as a financial institution, lower, cash and advances or loans and advances, and do more of the government securities?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that they're going to give us less for us to channel into our businesses, for us to grow. But on their side, they're going to cut back their losses and make sure that their balance sheets are tidy. Because, mind you, banks are in business to return value to shareholders. So it's a yes and a no, because for us it's a bad thing, because on the whole they'll give us less.
Right, so behind you here is the allocation percentages.
Yes. So
what does it mean?
Okay. So if you look at it on the left hand side, you see that the blue indicates bills, the red indicates securities, and the green indicates shares and other equities. Now look at look at October 2015, 77.1% going to bills. That's the short-term end. Now look at October 2018, 34.6%, massive drop. And you see the spike in securities from October 2015 to October 2018, from 19.6 to 64.4. That's the long-term end of the investment market. If you look at shares and other equities, you realize that it was 3.4% in October 2015. It has come down to 1.0% in October 2018. So over a 3-year period, you see that banks, as from the report says, are restructuring their balance sheets. They were doing a lot of short-term. Back in this year, returns on treasury bills short-term were very high, 22%, 25%.
Exactly.
Now you see that it's coming down. And you see that they are reshaping themselves and they're moving their money to the longer end. So you have more long-term investing by the banks.
Now, so moving forward, what do you expect this year, in the course of the year? Are they going to maintain this trend, or you think somewhere along the line we could have a reversal of the situation? Let
me advance two arguments. Bank of Ghana says, as the capital levels increase, following the conclusion of the minimum capital requirement and credit growth rebounds, we're going to see a change in this diagram. Other analysts have engaged as saying that this is not really going to change. There's one key issue I need to drop in here. What's the deposit profile of the banks? If they're taking short-term deposits to invest in long-term securities, then we have a mismatch on the go. Okay. You understand? Sure. But if they are getting some long-term source of funding, then that's all well and good. The report doesn't really delve into the deposit profile of the banks in general. So it's something that we will need to explore. But going forward, Bank of Ghana argues that this should rebound. So we should see some modest growth in credits in the economy.
Now, another worrying situation that the banking sector report puts out is that the level of non-performing loans are still going up, even though the rates have slowed down, maybe. Now, so one investment analyst also tells me that the situation that we're encountering with Men's Gold will increase non-performing loans in a way. What's your take on that?
Okay, so his argument is right in the sense that if someone took a loan from a bank, and it's a practice I have seen personally, where people take loans from banks and reinvest in another institution to double up on their returns. If that's the case, then we're going to see that the businesses that have taken these loans and invested these funds in some institutions such as Men's Gold are going to have some problems. But even beyond that, the stock of non-performing loans has reduced. One reason being that the Bank of Ghana gave a directive to banks to write off to write off some of their loans in August 2018. Over 1 billion of their loans that were past 2 years were written off. So yes, we should see that non-performing loans as a whole is still high. The stock has, however, dropped marginally, and the rate of growth has declined. So going forward, if banks put in the right credit risk management systems and the economy as a whole is on the right trajectory, then we should see some modest reduction in the non-performing loans.
Many thanks for that analysis, Philip, and of course, hope to see you again in our subsequent editions of the Marketplace. Now, let's turn our attention now to energy. And the Ministry of Energy says it has received 60 applications from prospective oil exploration companies willing to explore oil and gas on the Western Oil Block bidding that was launched last year. The committee, however, disqualified 2 applications due to some conditions. Addressing the media a while ago, Minister of Energy John Peter Amewu noted the interest of some giant exploration companies in this program indicates the impact of transparency initiative by the committee. He disclosed that the winners will be announced by the end of August this year. Now, standing by the premises of the Ministry of Energy is my colleague Ebenezer Sabuti to bring us up to speed with what actually went on. Ebenezer.
Hi, Abwaji, I can hear you.
All right, so tell us, what exactly has the Minister of Energy been saying about the licensing round, which actually went off last year?
So all has to do with the Western Cape 3 oil block, and the minister did indicate that 60 applications have been received from 16 companies. What it means is that some companies have applied for more than 2 or 1 blocks. So you can have a situation where Talo or Cosmos will apply for about 3 or 4 blocks. And in that instance, up to 60 applications have been received, and 2 of the applications have been invalidated. Even though they have been invalidated, they have the chance to renegotiate with GNPC so that they can go in for either a partnership deal or maybe an agreement. They've been invalidated because the block in which they are interested in, which is block 1, has been reserved for the GNPC and GNPC only. If you remember, when the licensing bidding round was launched, the government did indicate that that block is only for GNPC and it's reserved for Ghanaians. So these 2 companies have expressed interest in it, and they are the China National Offshore Oil Company and then also US-based Global Oil and Gas, but they've been disqualified as a result of their interest. The minister did also mention that by 31st of August, the winners of the various bids will be announced. Meanwhile, by 21st of this month, their names will be published in the various newspapers and media outlets.
All right, so which means that when the winners are announced, they are going to sign an agreement for exploration of oil and gas within the Western Enclave.
Exactly so. Immediately they have been announced or they've been issued with the certificate of winning or getting the block, work begins. So we inquired this from the chairman of the committee, Mr. Lawrence Apause, who clarified that yes, so far as the ministry comes out to say you are the winner, it means they've been communicated to and the work begins immediately, and they are going to be told whichever block they've won. If you've applied for 5 blocks, you may not win all. If you are able to win 3 or 2, you'll be given the chance to start exploration on those 2 or 3. Whichever you win, you start work on it. Apache.
Now, 60 companies, quite a huge number. Now, how many oil blocks in all are these 60 companies or the winners expected to have at the end of the process?
16 companies, Abuaji.
Oh, it's 16, not
16
60.
companies, but the applications is up to, yes, please. But the application is 60.
Okay.
So like I explained earlier, some applied for more than 2 blocks, more than 1 or 2 blocks. Let me give you the scenario of Talo or Cosmos in the 10 field and Jubilee field. Talo has a block at the Jubilee field, same way they have a block at the 10 field. So it's similar to this. One company may apply for more than 2 or 3, all making 60 applications. So the block is many, but the minister declined mentioning the exact number to us. He explained that all these numbers will be given out on the D-Day when the winners will be announced so that Ghanaians will know. Let me also put on record that about 15 of these companies are going in for or are requesting for competitive bidding, whilst the rest are also requesting for other negotiations.
All right, many thanks for your time, Ebenezer Sabuti, bringing us up to speed with the developments at the Ministry of Energy, where the minister has announced 16 companies applying for oil blocks in the Western Region Enclave offshore in the country. Meanwhile, the chief executive of Talo Ghana, Kwekwa Wutwi, has given assurance that the oil firm has put in place measures to actually ramp up production this year.
Very much about making sure what we call the top sides. When you go on the FPSO, hopefully you'll be there and you see the facilities. Basically making sure that all the equipment works. And it's really about the oil coming out of the seabed and then the various pieces of equipment, the heat exchangers, the compressors are all working. And you know, all these FPSOs, they are very large. I mean, they cost $1.5 billion easily, you know, lots of equipment on them, compressors, exchangers, even power plants are on them, about 80 to 90 megawatts of power plants. The job that that Talo has with MODEC, who's the main contractor, is to make sure that they are well maintained and that they are producing at the capacities that they are designed for. And as you see with a steady trend, you know, as I said, in 2016, Jubilee, we're only producing 100,000. Now we've got 10. We are slowly increasing production. So I think the track record basically gives us belief that we can get to 180,000 barrels.
And on the international front, oil prices fell on Thursday amid volatile currency and stock markets, coupled with concerns that an economic slowdown in 2019 will cut into fuel demand, just as crude supplies are surging. International Brent crude futures were down 50 cents at $54.41 a barrel.
In physical oil markets, experts say top exporter Saudi Arabia is expected to cut February prices for heavier crude grades sold to Asia by up to 50 cents a barrel due to weaker fuel oil margins. Fears of future economic and earnings growth continue to be the main driver in causing market jitters. This is a continuation of the volatility afflicting commodities and oil, with the last 24 hours marked by release of various weak economic data points, particularly manufacturing PMIs for major economies. Oil markets are also under pressure from a surge in supply, just as demand growth is expected to slow. U.S. crude production stood at a record 11.7 million barrels per day in late 2018, making America the world's biggest oil producer.
Now, the Ministry of Energy says government does not pay $40 million for the ENI gas project, reacting to media reports on the take-or-pay clause in the offshore Cape 3-point agreement between Ghana and the partners. With ENI, Ghana as the lead as operator. The ministry in a statement stated that the erstwhile NDC government signed a contract with ENI to flow 180 million metric standard cubic feet of gas in 2015. However, a statement by the Energy Ministry says government initiated some measures to fully utilize the gas and manage the take-or-pay obligation under the agreement. Let's get some more analysis from energy expert who joins me on phone, Ishmael Jokumhene. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the marketplace.
Good afternoon.
All right, so how can you explain all this that's going on? You know, government or the media has put it out across that, you know, the previous government signed the agreement between ENI and its partners with Ghana unduly because it hadn't put in place the right infrastructure at the time to take the gas. So because of that, we're going to pay $40 million as a result. Now, the ministry is clarifying the issue. What's your take on that?
Well, the truth of the matter is that there is an agreement between Ghana. I wouldn't even get into who signed the agreement because ultimately it's Ghana that has faces the liability and the financial burden. So there's an agreement between Ghana and the ENI partners to take a certain quantity of gas to be developed and produced from the ENI, the Sankofa field. Bottom line, the development is complete, but we are not ready to take the gas. So basically what is happening is that because there's a contractual volume,
okay, we
require to take or pay. So 180 million standard cubic feet is the contractual volume. But out of that, you know, GMPC is a 20% shareholder, so that comes around 36 million standard cubic feet. That's why the minister was referring to the reduction from 180 to the 140 million standard cubic feet. So that has to be paid for, regardless of whether we use it or not. So what the ministry is saying is that we have deferred our share of the gas. So the 20% thing, we said, okay, don't produce all of that, keep that for us, we go for it sometime later. And then part of the 60 million standard cubic feet has been channeled to...
Hello? Okay, so we lost our energy expert. He was talking to us on the current allegations made by the media report and the clarification by the Ministry of Energy that Ghana is not losing $40 million to the ENI or to the other partners of the offshore West Cape 3-point. And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of the Marketplace. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. You have a good afternoon.